At what appears to be his own wedding, a man is in disbelief. Having been single until the age of 25 and mocked as the cold-hearted winter bear, he cannot comprehend the situation. His bride, a woman with long silver hair, notices his distress and gently asks what is wrong, addressing him as Prince Soryu. He is internally overwhelmed by her appearance, thinking she is too cute, and marveling at her silky hair and smooth skin. Misinterpreting his stunned silence, she worriedly asks if her appearance bothers him. Soryu vehemently denies this, struggling to explain that he feels unworthy of her. He finally blurts out that he doesn't know what to do because she is so cute, much to the surprise of a guest who notes that it is their engagement ceremony. His mother informs Prince Soryu and his bride that they will be living together for the half-year leading up to their wedding, and she warns Soryu against any inappropriate behavior. Internally, Soryu panics, questioning if his sanity can withstand being so close to his cute fiancée for that long. The narrative then shifts, flashing back 3 months. 3 months prior, Soryu traveled with his mother to the neighboring caravan United Kingdom. While he was ostensibly there to attend the engagement ceremony of their crown prince, he knew his mother's true purpose was the reception that would follow. During the trip, his mother expressed her worry that Soryu, at 25 years old, still didn't have a fiancé. Soryu internally acknowledged that there was a very simple reason for his situation. He reflected on his family, believing the reason he wasn't popular was due to his siblings. He had a handsome elder brother, Crown Prince Leonidas L. Tydros, and a beautiful, androgynous second brother, Michaela L. Tydros, who resembled their mother, Queen Tydros, and had already married into another country. In contrast, Soryu, the third son, took after his rugged father, King Tydros. His life was far from courtly. Every winter, he led the knights to patrol the frontier, crushing bandits and rebels. This fearsome duty earned him the intimidating nickname, the Winter Bear of the Tydros. Prince Soryu reflects on his past nickname in the capital city, Bear. He recalls how his rugged appearance and perceived smelliness caused all his potential marriage meetings to fail, leaving him resigned to being single and simply wanting to return home. Suddenly, a loud voice cuts through the hall, publicly declaring, "The engagement is off." A man points accusingly at a woman in a long, veiled gown. Soryu is shocked by the outburst, recognizing the man as the crown prince of the luminous kingdom and wondering what he is thinking. The crown prince is identified as Arios Luminous. The woman beside him is Mile, who an onlooker recognizes as being from the hardy Baron family and refers to as the prince's public mistress. The veiled woman is revealed to be Arios's official fiancée, Sitoan Baramoa. Soryu observes her, noting that he cannot see her face and that his first impression of her was that she resembled a moving white cocoon. Soryu feels sympathy for Sitoan, having heard she and Arios lived together for 2 years before the engagement. His thoughts are cut short as Arios loudly accuses Sitoan of committing repeated inhumane acts against his beloved Mile. Crown Prince Arios continued his public condemnation, accusing Sitoan of ignoring Mile's attempts to speak with her and ostracizing her during tea parties. Internally, Prince Soryu found the situation absurd, questioning why royalty would even speak to someone of a lower status like Mile, a baron's daughter who had no place at a royal tea party to begin with. Arios declared that Sitoan and her followers were far too naive about the world. Mile, with tears in her eyes, added that she was deliberately bumped into while dancing. Soryu was aghast at their ignorance, wondering if they had any concept of the strict hierarchy that governed high society. Soryu observed that the other attendees were also looking upon the crown prince with cold, disapproving eyes. He watched as Lady Sitoan, having endured the unreasonable accusations, turned and began to walk away in silence. He wondered if she had simply given up or deemed it pointless to argue. As he watched her go, a noblewoman approached him with a sudden question, asking if he had a lover. Soryu, caught off guard, replied that he did not. Smiling behind her fan, the woman noted that if that was the case, then they should simply take that young lady. Soryu stared in shock at the audacious proposal. He was completely flustered, realizing the woman speaking so casually was his own mother. As he processed her words, Arios's voice echoed from the stage, declaring he could never take a wife with an ugly heart like Sitoan's. Prince Soryu recalls the cruel words Crown Prince Arios directed at Sitoan, dismissing her as his wife due to her appearance and questioning if she realized they were ill-suited. Unable to remain silent, Soryu publicly confronts Arios, furiously demanding he retract his statement for insulting a woman's appearance in public, and declaring that such behavior is unacceptable, even for the crown prince of another country. Arios is stunned into silence as other nobles glare at him with disapproval. Suddenly, Suryu's attention is drawn to a woman in a veiled wedding dress who has appeared nearby. He wonders why she is there. As the woman ascends the stairs, she calls out a single name, Atsuhito. Suryu is left completely bewildered by this development. Observing the unfolding scene, a dark-haired man mulls over the unfamiliar name Atsuhito. Nearby, a blonde-haired prince stands with a young woman, declaring that despite this being their first meeting, his decision is final. The prince then loudly proclaims that the engagement is broken off, a declaration that sends a shockwave through the onlookers. An older king shouts "fool" in fury, while the dark-haired man recoils in disbelief at the public spectacle. As the distraught King Noa begs for forgiveness, a stern man named Lord Baramoa arrives. He dismisses the king's apologies, stating coldly that he will be taking his foolish daughter back. Lord Baramoa turns to his daughter, a veiled woman named Sitoan, and tells her it is time to return home to the kingdom of Tanya. The dark-haired observer understands the gravity of the situation. The kingdom of Tanya is rich in mineral resources, and losing this alliance would be a devastating blow. Angered by the crown prince's reckless behavior, he decides to step forward and intervene. Just as the protagonist resolved to act, a woman elegantly steps forward, asking for a moment with King Noa and Lord Baramoa. The protagonist is shocked, recognizing the woman as his mother. King Noa identifies the newcomer as Queen Tydros, expressing surprise at her presence. Lord Baramoa is also taken aback. The queen wastes no time, directly asking King Noa if the engagement is truly going to be broken off. While King Noa frantically tries to deny it, Lord Baramoa cuts him off, stating firmly that breaking the engagement is fine and that he will take his daughter back to the kingdom of Tanya. The protagonist internally laments his mother's tendency to make matters black and white. Queen Tydros remarks on the poor treatment Sitoan has endured. The protagonist reflects that if he hadn't been stopped, he would have struck his own son for his behavior. The queen then turns her attention to Sitoan, expressing admiration for her composed attitude, befitting a lady educated to be a crown princess. Approaching the veiled young lady, Queen Tydros asks if she speaks the Tydros language. Sitoan confirms that while she is still inexperienced, she knows enough. She modestly clarifies that her skill is enough for daily life. The protagonist is impressed, noting her pronunciation is quite good and that learning foreign languages is an essential skill for royalty. While King Noa tries to shield Sitoan from the conversation, the protagonist wonders what his mother is planning. Queen Tydros, fanning herself, addresses Lord Baramoa directly, acknowledging her forwardness. She then makes a stunning proposal. She asks if Lord Baramoa would consider allowing his daughter to become her foolish son's companion. The protagonist is jolted by the suggestion, internally screaming in protest. He fumes that as the third prince, his standing is lower than that of a crown princess, and this feels less like matchmaking and more like being paired with a bear man with a losing streak. He wonders if his mother sees him through some kind of beautifying filter. Lord Baramoa states that such a proposal is bound to be rejected, calling her words too kind. He explains that as a vassal to the king of Tanya, he must first consult his own king before giving a formal reply. However, he continues, speaking not as a royal vassal but as a father, he would like to entrust his daughter to the very prince who stood up for her honor first. The protagonist is left speechless by this sudden acceptance. As Lord Baramoa and the veiled Sitoan turn to leave, the protagonist hastily calls out to them. He begins to explain that he doesn't resemble his mother or brothers, implying he is not the kind of royal Baramoa might be expecting. Internally, the protagonist grapples with his perceived shortcomings, believing he is unfit for such a match. As the third son, a knight unaccustomed to courtly life or handling women, he feels this arrangement is more than he can hope for. He worries his mother thinks he is trying to ruin the opportunity, but he feels compelled to make his position clear. Stepping forward, he formally introduces himself as Suryu Tydros and directly implores Lord Baramoa not to decide on Sitoan's behalf, insisting that her opinion must be prioritized and that he would not be bothered by a rejection. Lord Baramoa agrees. Suryu is then taken aback to learn he has a well-known nickname in the other country, one associated with a long streak of breaking off matches. The nickname is revealed to be the Winter Bear of Tidrose. Lord Baramoa thanks Suryu for standing up for his daughter. The narrative then jumps forward 2 months. 2 months later, Suryu is in disbelief that a formal engagement proposal from the Kingdom of Tanya was accepted. He finds himself being rigorously drilled on ceremony procedures by his adjutant, Raoul. At the event, he meets the Crown Prince of Luminous, who finds Suryu's predicament to be an unexpected find, remarking that it's good the prince is an idiot. The Luminous nobles begin to gossip, revealing that Sito and Baramoa, age 20, had come to their kingdom 2 years prior for bridal training. However, their own Crown Prince Arios disliked her appearance, and their relationship never progressed. At the engagement ceremony, Suryu lifts the veil to see his betrothed, Sito and Baramoa, for the first time. Expecting the ugliness he had been told about, Suryu is stunned by her appearance. He panics, loudly questioning where the ugliness is, which throws his retainers into a frenzy as they confirm she is, in fact, an incredibly beautiful young lady. His companions struggle to restrain him as he despairs over what to do with such a beautiful girl. Raoul reminds him to calm down and not keep his fiancée waiting, as there is still the rest of the ceremony to complete, starting with a kiss on the forehead. Suryu manages to compose himself enough to apologize for his outburst, internally admitting that he's panicking because she is overwhelmingly cute. He asks for her permission to proceed, and Sitoan gives a silent, assenting nod, closing her eyes in anticipation. As he looks at her, Suryu's mind races. He finds her defenseless posture incredibly cute, thinking her very existence is a sin. He compares her to a small, soft white marten and is horrified by the thought of what her skin might feel like, berating himself for his own thoughts. Leaning in to perform the ceremonial kiss, he desperately commands himself to cast away his impure thoughts, all while his attendants watch with a mixture of amusement and concern. As Sitoan maintains a gentle, serene expression, Suryu completely loses his composure, flailing before trying to regain a semblance of control. From off-panel, Raoul shouts his name in exasperation. Internally, Suryu despairs, wondering if his sanity will hold out for the entire 6 months until the wedding. Later that night, after the engagement ceremony concluded, Suryu finds his vice-captain, Raoul, wiping away a tear. Suryu asks him why he is crying, but Raoul simply denies it. Raoul explains that his tears are of joy for Suryu, his captain, finally getting engaged. As men who were raised like brothers, Raoul had always claimed he couldn't consider marriage himself while Suryu, who is about to turn 30, remains single. With a bright smile, Raoul declares that he can now marry without any worries. Suryu feels a pang of guilt, knowing Raoul's devotion had kept him from finding a partner for years. Pushing the thought aside, his mind shifts to what comes next, recalling a stern warning from his older brothers. They had ordered him to absolutely do not make any blunders. This was compounded by a direct order from King Tanya: Suryu and Sitoan must live together immediately. The measure was to prevent a scandal, given Suryu's previous broken engagement. Suryu's thoughts drift to the dinner party, remembering the smug, love-struck expression he wore while thinking how cute his new fiancée was. His reverie is cut short as he recalls a fellow knight mentioning that Sitoan also has a dragon mark, a revelation that makes Suryu realize he will have to be even more careful. The Kingdom of Tanya is also known as the Dragon Country, a name earned because dragons were deeply involved in the nation's founding. Consequently, only special members of the royal family receive scale-like tattoos called dragon marks. Marrying someone who bears a dragon mark is therefore considered an incredible honor. As Suryu sits, an attendant enters with a message: Lord Vandal will be paying a visit tomorrow. Suryu leaps to his feet, shouting that the visit is too sudden. He fumes, convinced that Vandal is only coming to mock his predicament and enjoy his panic. Despite his anger, he resolves that he must go see Miss Sitoan. Outside her room, Raoul teases Suryu, warning that he'll barge in if the greeting takes longer than 15 minutes. Suryu tells him to shut up, but internally admits he is nervous about entering a lady's bedroom. He announces himself and is invited in. Upon entering, Suryu is immediately struck by Sitoan's appearance as she sits gracefully in her nightgown, leaving him momentarily stunned and blushing. Sitoan thanks him for his hard work, and a flustered Suryu explains he only came to say goodnight. Misinterpreting his nervousness, she apologizes and suggests she should have come to him, prompting Soryu to frantically deny that was what he meant. Soryu asks Sitoan if she would be willing to meet a friend who was visiting the next day, and she graciously accepts. Sitoan adds that everyone, including her mate Eaton, has been very kind. At the mention of her name, Eaton is shown weeping with joy for her lady's happiness. A flashback, recounting a story from the head maid, reveals the terrible treatment Sitoan endured for 2 years at her previous residence. She was not given proper meals, her belongings were broken, and clothes sent for laundry were returned torn apart. Soryu internally reflects on this. Although the head maid advised offering words of comfort, he feels it would be inappropriate to bring up her suffering when she shows no outward sign of it, believing it would be patronizing to do so based on mere speculation. Sitoan sincerely thanks Soryu for everything, especially for giving her a lifeline at the engagement ceremony. Her gratitude completely flusters Soryu, who erupts, insisting he is merely a prince in name only and a bear-like man unworthy of such praise. As he panics, Sitoan calmly thinks to herself, "I knew it." Looking at him directly, Sitoan states that he is exactly the person she imagined and that he hasn't changed at all. This declaration confuses Soryu, who wonders if they have met somewhere before. Soryu, still flustered, asks if she is truly satisfied with him as her consort, and she smiles, confirming she is. His thoughts are interrupted when he notices the time on a grandfather clock, realizing he should leave soon before Raoul scolds him for overstaying. Soryu gently asks Sitoan if her dragon mark bothers her. She admits that it does, a little, and then hesitantly asks if he finds it disgusting. Confused, Soryu questions who would call another country's cherished culture disgusting. Sitoan explains that some gentlemen do, which triggers a memory for Soryu of a specific man he mentally labels that bastard. Determined to show he is different from the man who hurt her, Soryu puts on what he hopes is the kindest smile of his life. He declares that those with dragon marks are precious to the kingdom of Tanya and respectfully asks if she would show it to him, causing Sitoan to blush. Sitoan agrees to show him, but her flustered reaction makes Soryu wonder if he said something strange. As she begins to unfasten her dress near her collarbone, he realizes he is not mentally prepared for what is about to happen. And his composure breaks entirely upon understanding the mark is located on the valley of her chest. He leaps back in a panic, shouting that it's not good and would be bad for him to see. Sitoan, however, seems to misinterpret his outburst as insistence and begins to stand. As Sitoan pulls down her dress to reveal her décolletage and asks if he would like to see it, Soryu lets out a scream of pure, overwhelmed terror. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Soryu declares his retreat, hastily promising to see Miss Sitoan the next day before slamming the door behind him. His subordinates watch him go, one asking why the captain's face was so red. Sitoan, still seated, tries to clarify, insisting that the entire situation was a misunderstanding. Elsewhere, a well-dressed, dark-haired man observes the situation from afar, a confident smile on his face. He identifies Sitoan as the woman who has captured his dear friend's heart and expresses his anticipation for their future meeting. A dark-haired military officer arrives in a guest room, wondering where his expected visitor is. As he enters, a butler announces that the young master has returned home. Suddenly, an exuberant man with brown hair bursts in with open arms, loudly declaring he's been waiting for his friend. The officer reacts with immediate annoyance, grabbing the man's face and denying their friendship, before effortlessly throwing him across the room. The man lands gracefully, unperturbed, and formally introduces himself, Vandal. Later, the two sit together. Vandal remarks on the unpredictability of life, expressing his surprise that the officer, who he believed had no intention of marrying, would get married before him. Vandal reflects on their long friendship, which began at the military academy. He muses that despite the officer's good looks, he turns down every matchmaking attempt, claiming to be waiting for a fateful encounter. Vandal also recalls his friend's formidable combat prowess, noting that his bloodthirsty fighting style earned him a specific nickname. Vandal reminisces about his old-school nickname, the Vampire Count, which was born from the fear he inspired in underclassmen. He then mentions he brought a wedding gift for his friend, admitting he just picked something at random. The gift is revealed to be a massive, museum-quality whale skeleton suspended from the ceiling. The officer is stunned, questioning what it is, while Vandal playfully asks if giving whale bones as engagement gifts isn't a custom in his friend's region. The officer explains he's been ordered not to touch his fiancée until the royal wedding parade in the capital. Vandal mockingly pities his friend's situation, jokingly suggesting they should punch him. Changing the subject to more serious matters, the officer brings up the caravan-allied kingdom, noting he's heard they are in a difficult predicament. Elsewhere, a nobleman is shown in distress upon learning that the sale of mining resources has been stopped. Vandal elaborates on the crisis, explaining that King Tanya is furious with the crown prince of the Luminous Kingdom for insulting the girl with the dragon mark. As a result, the Tanya Kingdom, a key source of wars, has ceased sharing resources within the Caravan-allied kingdom, of which Luminous is a member. Vandal reveals that the prince is currently confined to the royal castle under the guise of house arrest, but he believes this lenient punishment is merely for show and will be lifted soon. He then shifts his focus, asking about the current location of the princess who instigated the entire affair. As Vandal learned that the head butler was calling for the princess, he explained to his friend that he wanted to meet him alone first, unsure of what he might say. His friend, however, suddenly burst into the room, startling Vandal and putting him on edge just before the important meeting. The friend, Vandalsheen, apologized for his abrupt entrance, explaining he was so eager to congratulate Vandal that he rode his horse too hard. He then playfully grabbed Vandal, urging him to get away quickly before he gave Vandal's wife any strange ideas. At that precise moment, the doors opened to reveal Princess Sidoin and her butler. They walked into the awkward sight of Vandalsheen with his arm draped familiarly over a mortified Vandal, who could only look on in silent frustration. Trembling with agitation, Vandal tried to protest that the situation was not what it seemed. Vandalsheen, however, cheerfully introduced their relationship to the princess as that of school friends. As Vandal tried to squirm away, the butler calmly reassured the princess that he had known Master Vandal for a long time and that there was nothing untoward between them. Adopting a formal posture, Vandalsheen introduced himself as Vandalsheen from the Sheen County, poetically referring to the princess as the goddess who shot an arrow through my friend's heart. The princess, in turn, introduced herself as Sitoan Baramoa. Vandal, watching from the side, was irritated but had to admit his friend's formal greeting was surprisingly picturesque. Internally, Vandal was captivated by Sitoan, thinking, how adorable. He admired how wonderfully her current dress suited her and felt a pang of jealousy, wishing he could be the only one to see her smile. Vandalsheen observed this, noting to himself how quickly his friend had fallen into the princess's hands. As Vandal reels from the head butler's words, Princess Sitoan clarifies that she is the one who fell in love with his bone collection. Vandalsheen then draws her attention to a large whale skeleton suspended from the ceiling, noting that she seems knowledgeable about it, which surprises her since her own kingdom is landlocked. Sitoan explains that she learned about skeletal specimens from her tutor. Vandalsheen smoothly compliments her, remarking how wonderful her dress looks. This catches Vandal completely off guard, and he panics internally. Vandal berates himself, thinking he should have been the first to say something. Desperate to contribute, he blurts out a flustered and rambling compliment, calling her outfit lovely, very early summer-like, and well-suited to her beautiful skin. Vandalsheen turns away, trying to stifle his laughter at his friend's awkwardness. Despite the clumsy delivery, Sitoan is visibly delighted, telling Vandal she is very happy and glad she wore the dress, much to his surprise. Vandal reflects on his past self, realizing that simply thinking someone is cute is not enough, he has to actually say it out loud. He comes to a firm resolution: even if he can't express himself well or the conversation becomes tedious, what's most important is shaping his feelings into words and giving them to Sitoan, because those are the words she is waiting for. Vandalsheen observes Vandal's pained expression, noting internally that it's frustrating Vandal was the one to make him realize something. Out loud, he asks if Vandal is feeling unwell. Vandal, meanwhile, is in silent distress, attributing his condition to pushing himself too hard because of recent events in the county. Interrupting the moment, Vandal asks if he may speak, surprising the others. As Vandalsheen gives him permission, Princess Sitoan looks on with dawning comprehension, beginning to form a theory about Vandal's state. Interrupting the previous conversation, Sitoan Baramoa offers a startling theory, suggesting that Lord Vandal might be suffering from anemia. Vandal is unfamiliar with the term, and Sidoan clarifies that it's a condition often associated with turning pale and collapsing. Intrigued, Vandal-shin asks Sidoan why he believes this to be the case. Sidoan's answer is direct and focused, pointing to a specific piece of evidence that has caught his attention: Vandal's nails. He explains that Vandal's nails are spoon-shaped and have horizontal ridges, which are common signs of iron deficiency anemia. Vandal, looking uncomfortable, tries to deflect the observation with a joke, claiming his nails are simply rebellious like their owner. Vandal-shin's concern deepens, and she asks if he is taking any medicine. Sidoan reveals the bizarre medical advice Vandal had received: to put old nails in wine and drink it. Seeing the absurdity of the treatment, Vandal-shin takes a more practical approach, beginning to inquire about Vandal's diet. When Vandal-shin suggests iron-rich foods like pork liver or chicken, Vandal recoils in disgust. Vandal-shin notes that Vandal has always hated meat, a fact Vandal confirms, admitting he only eats it out of necessity, not enjoyment. Sidoan enthusiastically interjects, recommending bonito as its dark meat is high in iron. She provides a detailed method for preparation to eliminate the fishy smell and increase iron absorption with lemon, but the description only makes Vandal feel more nauseous. Continuing her expert advice, Sidoan explains that if his anemia isn't caused by internal organ issues, it can be managed with supplements. She suggests iron-rich plants like spinach and seaweed if he dislikes meat, and even mentions the ancient, if questionable, practice of drinking wine infused with nails. Vandal-shin supports her claims, adding that while plant-based iron is harder to absorb, eating it with fruits or vinegar improves the rate. Growing visibly irritated by the prolonged discussion of his health, Vandal finally snaps, asking why they are so focused on his anemia. With a dismissive tone, Vandal scoffs at their concern, labeling anemia as a womanly disease. A brief flashback reveals he had previously brushed off Vandal-shin's worries by claiming he was simply tired from overworking himself. Vandal-shin firmly refutes this notion, stating, "There's no male or female when it comes to illness." He admonishes Vandal for trying to look cool while suffering, as Sidoan looks on with a gentle, approving smile. Vandal-shin agrees with Sidoan, stating that illness causes suffering regardless of gender. Filled with purpose, Sidoan cheerfully encourages them to work together and eat proper meals to improve Vandal's health. Impressed by her knowledge, Vandal-shin turns to Sidoan and remarks that she is like a doctor. A comment that sends Sidoan into a frantic panic. She vehemently denies the comparison, grabbing onto a bewildered Vandal-shin and apologizing profusely, leaving him to wonder what to do with the flustered woman. After the commotion subsides, Vandal formally asks Sidoan if she possesses medical knowledge, speculating whether her father is a court physician or if she studied medicine elsewhere. Sidoan hesitates, unable to give a straight answer. Noticing her distress, Vandal-shin intervenes, voicing the question he knows is on Vandal's mind. He asks if her dietary advice is truly correct and if it will actually cure the anemia. Vandal-shin internally worries that he spoke too bluntly. Regaining her composure, Sidoan clarifies that while neither she nor her father are doctors, the knowledge she has shared is indeed correct. Sidoan earnestly pleads for their trust, confidently stating that if they continue with the dietary habits she recommended, Lord Vandal's condition will recover, proving her words right. Vandal processes her statement, confirming with her that she is not, in fact, a doctor. While Vandal-shin seems intrigued by her possessing medical knowledge without the title, Vandal himself appears confused by the situation. Suddenly, Vandal-shin leans in close to a startled Vandal, asking when they can both come to his territory. After Vandal confirms he needs 5 days to finish his work, Shin calculates the travel time and decides to inform his father of their impending arrival. He then turns to a slightly surprised Sidoan, addressing her as a mysterious young lady and informing her that he and his father will be waiting for her. With a final farewell to his friend, Vandal-shin departs. In the aftermath of his whirlwind decision, it is settled, Sidoan and Vandal will be making a trip to Count Shin's territory. At a formal gathering under a full moon, Vandal stands alone with a drink, internally lamenting that he has messed up regarding a planned expedition to Count Shin's territory. Across the hall, his fiancée, Sidoan, smiles warmly while conversing with other guests. In a prior conversation, Vandal's brother expressed disbelief, questioning why their father would permit such an expedition. Their father, however, cut the discussion short with a stern command for Vandal to proceed, stating that the matter was classified and that the details would be provided by Count Sheen himself. Vandal reflects on the classified nature of the mission, even though he received approval. At the castle gates, a young man named Eaton, along with other guards, formally pledges to handle Miss Citoyen's protection, much to the delight of her maid. Before their departure, Vandal explains to Citoyen that their journey will involve staying at various lords' mansions, which will also serve as introductions for them. 20 days after Vandal's arrival, having received a reassuring reply to an apology letter he sent, they set off. Their first stop is a grand mansion where the host, a beaming lord, welcomes them with unexpected fanfare, proclaiming it an honor to host the prince. Amidst the celebration, Vandal feels a sense of unease, wondering if Citoyen will be alright and recalling a surprising story from the Luminous Kingdom's engagement ceremony. As Vandal carries Citoyen through the hall, the host lord loudly proclaims a romanticized version of events, declaring that the prince swept Miss Citoyen away. Vandal, embarrassed by the tale, begins coughing in an attempt to silence him, while the host lord remarks that such boldness is expected of Tigros's winter bear. Later, while holding a drink, Vandal is approached by other nobles. They bring up the rumors surrounding Citoyen, mentioning that the truth of her character is completely different from what they'd heard. They recall the gossip that she was conceited about her dragon crest and used it as an excuse to avoid social circles during her engagement to Prince Arios. The nobles continue listing the false rumors, that Citoyen was a spendthrift and struggled with foreign languages. Hearing these malicious lies, Vandal's patience snaps. He slams his glass down and furiously demands to know who spread such things, startling the guests as his subordinate tries to calm him. The noble who spoke quickly apologizes for getting carried away. Another guest speculates that the bad rumors were likely spread by those who didn't want ties with Miss Citoyen, implying Prince Arios's faction was responsible. One of the men corrects the record, stating that upon meeting her, it's clear Miss Citoyen is fluent in foreign languages and shows no signs of being conceited. The mention of her linguistic skill catches Vandal's attention, triggering a memory. Vandal internally reflects on Citoyen's past, recalling that she lived abroad for 2 years, speaking foreign languages and rarely using her native tongue. He thinks of the white veil she wore at their engagement, realizing it was like a white cocoon, a symbol of her painful effort to kill her old self and be reborn as someone completely different. Vandal overhears a group of nobles discussing the troublesome matter of Luminous' new crown princess, Mile. They lament that she is ignorant of current affairs and cannot be brought to diplomatic occasions, which has become a serious problem since their nation's mining resource exports were halted, forcing them to purchase resources from foreign countries. The nobles recall a recent incident where Mile made a direct, undignified appeal to a resident official from Tanya, begging him to sell her jewels because she felt her wedding would be diminished without them. The memory of this embarrassing event causes Vandal to cringe. The conversation shifts, with one noble remarking that the previous crown princess, Citoyen, was popular until she adopted a villain persona. Another insults the neighboring country's crown prince for his poor judgment. This triggers a memory for Vandal of the prince cruelly telling Citoyen she could never be his wife, fueling Vandal's desire to see that prince suffer. Scanning the ballroom, Vandal's gaze falls upon Citoyen. His expression suddenly shifts from contemplation to alarm as he notices something wrong with the drink in her hand. And seeing a nearby maid's shocked face confirms his suspicion. He urgently orders his subordinate, Raoul, to investigate. Raoul immediately understands and moves swiftly through the crowd. Raoul reaches Citoyen just as she is about to drink. He takes the glass from her, and despite the maid's panicked attempt to stop him, he tastes its contents. His immediate, pained reaction confirms that the drink was tampered with. At the party, Vandal examines the glass Raoul intercepted. Raoul asks what is wrong with the drink, questioning if it has simply gone bad, but Vandal dismisses the idea. Vandal takes a small, cautious sip and his eyes widen in realization. He recalls being informed that Miss Citoyen suffers from a severe allergy to peaches and apples, a condition that has worsened since childhood to the point where even touching the juice is dangerous. Her staff had explicitly warned all lords to exclude them from any food or drink served to her. Vandal confirms with Raoul that the drink contains peach. He then questions how it was given to Citoyen, and Raoul explains a butler handed it to her, addressing her as princess. Vandal realizes that since there is likely no other woman at the venue with that honorific, the drink could not have been delivered by mistake. Which means someone deliberately targeted Miss Sitoen. As the gravity of the situation sets in, Raoul suggests moving her to the bedroom for safety. Vandal agrees, adding that to ensure her safety, he should stay as close as possible, even if it means sharing the room. The suggestion immediately creates an awkward reality, as a surprised Sitoen, now in her nightgown, questions the arrangement while Vandal panics at his own impulsive declaration. Inside a lavishly decorated bedroom, Tygros awkwardly tells Sitoen to think of him as heir. Sitoen, blushing, insists that she is the one who is in the way. A flashback to 1 hour prior reveals the reason for their arrangement. A search based on Eaton's testimony failed to locate the butler who had handed the suspicious glass to Sitoen. This led Tygros' subordinates to conclude that Sitoen is being deliberately targeted, insisting that for her safety, Tygros' winter bear must remain by her side at all times, even if it means sharing a bedroom. Back in the present, Tygros declares he will sleep on the sofa, but Sitoen vehemently objects, proclaiming she will take it instead. Tygros refuses to let a girl sleep there, though Sitoen retorts that she is not that young anymore. Cornered by Sitoen's proposal, Tygros internally resigns himself to the fact that they will be sleeping together in the bed. Sitoen, having made her point, presents him with a final choice: sleep with her on the sofa or in the bed. Tygros panics internally, imagining that sharing the narrow sofa would inevitably lead to him making a move on her. He concludes that enduring the situation at the edge of the large bed is the more manageable option, and Sitoen settles onto her side. Sitting stiffly on the edge of the bed, Tygros struggles to contain himself, finding every one of Sitoen's movements captivating. To break the tension, he addresses the earlier incident with the drink, claiming it was a simple mistake and that the drink was meant for another young lady. Internally, Tygros decides it is better not to tell Sitoen the truth about the potential assassination attempt, as it would only cause unnecessary anxiety. He reaffirms his duty to protect her from the closest possible position and then recalls a thought he had during the evening party. Turning to Sitoen, he makes a suggestion to change their dynamic. He asks if, when they are alone, they could speak to each other in their native language, Tanian. Tygros explains that his own Tanian is limited to everyday conversation, lacking formal honorifics. He reflects on how long Sitoen has been living in a foreign land, constantly speaking a different language, and wonders if returning to her native tongue might comfort her. He clarifies, however, that she must continue to speak Tydrosian in public. Sitoen asks Tygros why he has been so kind to her since they first met. Kneeling before her, he replies that it is only natural for a husband to treat his future wife well, leaving her momentarily stunned by the directness of his words. As Sitoen stares at him, Tygros senses a strange feeling of lineage in her gaze, but he intuits that something is wrong. And realizes she is not truly seeing him. Instead, she is looking through him, at the memory of another prince from her past. In an attempt to bring her back to the present and distinguish himself, Tygros asks her to look at his dragon mark. He explains that, at least in his homeland, it was his pride. Sitoen explains her perspective, stating that while she is grateful to people who respect her country's culture, she has learned firsthand that not all nations return courtesy with courtesy. She apologizes, admitting that her resulting disgust is an involuntary reaction. Recalling his earlier question about what she dislikes, Sitoen gives a much more honest answer than her previous one about insects. With a strained smile, she reveals that she dislikes her mother and the crown prince. Sitoen continues her explanation, positing that if Tygros hated insects as she does, he would be repulsed by someone who had them carved onto their body, referencing her former fiancé. Tygros internally questions what the man truly hated, the dragons, the scales, or the act of carving itself. She concludes that if Tygros possessed a similar physiological aversion, he could never come to like her. With this, she directly challenges him, asking him to look at her dragon mark and declare what he will do after seeing it. Sitoen presses him further, asking if he will tell her to hate it or call it disgusting, just as the other man did. Internally, Tygros' frustration boils over. He desperately wants her to forget that man and stop comparing them, recognizing that he is the one with her now. Unable to restrain himself, Tygros shouts, "That crown prince and Prince Saryu are different. Just forget him already." His outburst causes Sitoun to falter, and she sadly admits that she tried to respect and love her fiancé, Crown Prince Arios. Tears welling in her eyes, Sitoun asks how it is possible to forgive someone who despises, abhors, and mocks you. She confesses that she is no saint and feels she has said too much, turning away from him. Realizing his mistake, Tydros immediately apologizes, lamenting that he should have understood her efforts and her pain. As Sitoun tries to deflect, he kneels before her, insisting that he doesn't care if she dislikes or rejects him, as it won't cause him any pain. Tears in her eyes, Sitoun clarifies her feelings to the kneeling Tydros. She tells him she doesn't want him to hate her, and in fact, thinks very favorably of him as Prince Saryu, which leaves him momentarily stunned. She then confesses that she loves him for cherishing her and wishes he would come to like her in return. However, her deep-seated insecurity surfaces as she states her belief that he could never truly like her, and that she would give up on him if he felt any physiological disgust towards her. Which is why she makes a demand: he must see her dragon mark, right here and now. She proposes this as a definitive test, stating that if he finds the mark disgusting, she will erase her feelings for him. She resolves that she can still cut off her emotions and live as a mere doll, continuing the marriage solely for the sake of their two countries. Understanding the immense weight of her request, Tydros rises to meet her gaze. With a serious and determined expression, he accepts her terms, telling her, "Show it to me." Inside a lavish bedroom, the man urgently demands that the woman show him her dragon mark. She looks back at him, taken aback by the sudden request. Complying, the woman kneels on the bed. With a shy blush, she begins to pull down the shoulder of her nightgown as the man watches. The man is suddenly struck by a panicked realization. He hadn't considered where the mark might be, and now understands he has just asked Miss Sitoun to show him her chest. He internally grapples with this, recalling the derogatory term lizard people but steeling his resolve to accept whatever she reveals. With a gentle and determined expression, Sitoun continues to lower her gown, revealing her bare chest to the stunned man. The man stares, flustered, at the small, wing-like mark located on Sitoun's chest. Sitoun quietly notes that the dragon mark is different from what she had imagined. The man asks if Crown Prince Arios has seen it, but she reveals that although she offered, Arios refused. The man is internally enraged, thinking Crown Prince Arios an idiot for getting scared without even looking. He realizes the prince's refusal must have hurt Sitoun. His anger gives way to a mysterious fascination with the mark itself. Feeling inexplicably drawn to it, he reaches out his hand. He gently touches the mark, observing that it is warm, soft, smooth, and blue. He experiences a strange sensation that causes him to let out an involuntary gasp. And as he kneels before Sitoun on the bed, the sensation abruptly culminates in a moment of profound, wide-eyed shock. Overwhelmed by the intense sensation from the dragon mark, the man stumbles backward, shouting an apology, and collapses to the floor. His mind races, questioning why he touched it while grappling with the lingering softness on his hand and a powerful physical reaction he struggles to control. He warns a concerned Sitoun not to come any closer. After composing himself slightly, he kneels and apologizes for his sudden and extreme reaction. Sitoun, believing she is the cause of his distress, insists that she is the one who should be sorry. Looking down with deep-seated insecurity, Sitoun asks if he found her dragon mark disgusting. The man immediately and vehemently denies it, stating it was the complete opposite, and clarifies with a startlingly honest warning: if she were to come near him at that moment, he is quite sure he would attack her. Sitoun turns away, quietly processing his intense confession. Misinterpreting her silence as fear or revulsion, the man anxiously asks if she hates him now. She begins to form a reply. With tears welling in her eyes, Sitoun timidly asks if his intense reaction means he might come to like her even more, a question that catches the man completely off guard. The emotional weight of her words hits him with physical force, causing him to collapse to his knees in front of a surprised Sitoun. Instead of fear, a radiant smile of relief spreads across Sitoun's face as she whispers, "Thank goodness," a reaction that only deepens the man's shock and sends him into a spiral of internal panic. He mentally screams in frustration, acknowledging her overwhelming cuteness and their mutual feelings, but agonizes over why he feels tested and unable to act on his desires. Concerned, Sitoan asks if he is alright. The man, still on the floor, insists he is fine and tells her to go to sleep first, declaring he will sleep on the edge of the bed. Internally, he struggles to avoid looking at her, trying to empty his mind by reciting poetry. As he kneels, Sitoan lies down on the bed and reaches a hand out towards him. As the man remains on his knees, overwhelmed, Sitoan leans forward with a gentle smile, chanting a simple, childlike spell, "Pain, pain, fly away." Her innocent gesture catches him completely off guard. Internally, he grapples with the immense power she holds over his emotions, wondering if she is a goddess or a demon. Despite his confusion, a profound sense of gratitude washes over him as he silently thanks her. On the third day of their journey, the group stops at a roadside cafe. The man, now identified as a captain, appears visibly stressed and exhausted, prompting concern from his subordinates. He internally reveals the source of his frustration. Ever since their journey began, he has been sharing a bed with Sitoan every night. The proximity has left him so tense that he can't move, and he is still haunted by the sensation from the previous evening, where she held his hand in her sleep, preventing him from getting any rest at all. When one of his men suggests he sleep on the second floor while Sitoan rests, the captain refuses, stating he cannot rest while his men are working. He then asks where Sitoan is. Sitoan is seen enjoying a drink in the courtyard, attended by a maid. The subordinate suggests the captain join her, and he gazes at her with a gentle expression. The captain explains his decision to keep his distance. He wants to limit the number of people around her during breaks so she can enjoy her tea and sweets. He recalls Sitoan mentioning she feels relieved to speak her native language when they are alone in the bedroom, leading him to believe she also needs time completely to herself. As he speaks, a waiter approaches their group. While Sitoan is being attended to at the cafe, the captain's gaze fixes on an approaching man with a long ponytail. He notices a knife on the man's tray, instantly recognizing it as a weapon and not a utensil. Reacting instantly to the perceived threat, the captain shouts for everyone to get away. He hurls a nearby teacup at the man, intending for it to serve as a distraction and a warning. The teacup shatters on the cobblestone path as the captain moves swiftly to shield a shocked Sitoan from the unfolding attack. As the attacker lunges forward with his blade drawn, the captain furiously demands to know what he is doing. The captain intercepts the lunging man with a powerful kick, but the attacker dodges with surprising skill. As he lands, the captain notes the man's agility and spots a second, hooded assailant descending from above. Immediately, the captain orders his subordinates to protect Lady Sitoan. He squares off against the primary attacker, his resolve hardening as he prepares to defend her at all costs. The captain's face contorts with cold fury as he glares at the assassin before him. Internally, he seethes, feeling an immense rage building. Right now, he thinks, "I'm in the worst mood possible." The captain engages the assassin, parrying the initial knife thrust with his sword before fluidly sidestepping and delivering a powerful strike to his opponent's midsection. As the assassin stumbles back, he throws a small, dark object. A nearby subordinate spots the danger and shouts a warning, "On your right." The captain dodges the projectile with ease, but his eyes widen slightly as he sees the assassin has used the moment to draw a second blade, revealing he is a dual wielder. Parrying the swift, two-pronged attack, the captain analyzes his opponent's movements. He notes the assassin's speed and dual-wielding technique, but quickly perceives a discernible pattern to his attacks. The assassin makes a desperate attempt to break the captain's sword, a move that catches the captain by surprise for only an instant. Before he channels his rage into a decisive counter, roaring as he overpowers his opponent and seizes him from behind, and slams the man face-first into the stone courtyard. Standing over the defeated assassin, the captain orders his subordinates to bring a rope to secure their prisoner. As his men begin to tie up the captive, one of them reassures the captain that everything is all right and that they will handle the rest, urging him to go somewhere else in the garden. Before the captain can fully process the instruction, Sitoan rushes forward and embraces him tightly. Startled by the sudden contact, he hears her ask if he is all right, admitting that she had been scared for him. Sitoan frantically asks the captain if he is all right and uninjured. Taken aback by her concern, he calmly dismisses her worries, stating that this is nothing for him as he is called the Winter Bear for a reason. Still held by Sitoen, the captain decides against his subordinate's suggestion to secure a waiting room. Citing the need for haste, he orders them to proceed to Vandal's place early and instructs a man named Eaton to leave a few men behind to investigate the captured attacker's background. The captain notices that Sitoen's legs have given out from the shock of the event. He lifts her into his arms to carry her to the carriage, surprising a nearby maid. As he holds her, he tells Sitoen he is glad that she is safe. While carrying her, the captain internally reflects on how Sitoen consistently worries about him more than herself, feeling as though she is trying to protect him from any enemy. He verbally reassures her that he is safe and always has been. But Sitoen, with tears in her eyes, seeks absolute certainty, asking if he is really alright and if he promises he won't die. He looks at her with conviction and makes a firm promise that he will not die, and neither will she. He declares that the safest place in the entire country is right there in his arms, telling her there is nothing to be afraid of. As the captain carried Sitoen away, 2 of his men watched on. One remarked that she was in the safest place, addressing her as princess and telling her to be at ease. The captain, holding her close, internally vowed that he would always be by her side, ensuring no one could ever hurt her again. Sitoen looked up at the captain, her expression a mixture of sorrow and profound trust. She clutched his uniform tightly, finding security in his embrace. Upon arriving at Count Shin's territory, the captain and Sitoen are met with a boisterous welcome from the count, who greets the captain as a dear friend. The count remarks on how healthy Sitoen appears, attributing her recovery to the captain's efforts, which he reveals included hiring a skilled chef to help her overcome picky eating habits. The captain, eager to get to the point, internally recalls the aftermath of the cafe attack. The waiter had committed suicide by biting off his tongue, and despite the incident, Sitoen had stubbornly refused to cancel their evening plans to avoid causing a scene. He explains that his subsequent decision to ban weapons at the gala was unexpectedly interpreted by the public as a grand romantic gesture, similar to the king's devotion to the queen. Count Shin listens intently, acknowledging that events have taken a strange turn. An associate of the count formally greets Sitoen as Your Highness, the Queen, before Count Shin directs the group to sit, stating it is time to discuss the main issue concerning a certain Lord Mata. Count Shin explains that Lord Mata is in exile from the Mira Empire, for whom he vouched, and is now tasked with managing the exile district within the Tioros kingdom. He gravely informs the captain and Sitoen that a mysterious illness has broken out in that district, causing them both to become visibly concerned. The captain questions the nature of the illness. The brown-haired man clarifies that it's called mysterious precisely because they don't understand it, and their only recourse is to isolate patients. Sitoen calmly asks if it could be an infectious disease. The man admits they don't know, but the similarity in symptoms prevents them from bringing patients to general hospitals. He then turns his attention to Sitoen, stating they would like to hear her opinion on the matter. The captain immediately leaps to his feet and shouts, "I refuse." He adamantly forbids Sitoen from going to such a dangerous place, especially since it has not yet been confirmed to be an infectious disease. Count Shin attempts to placate him, revealing that he has already met the patients and even lived with them for several days without falling ill. However, the brown-haired man interjects, insisting that the mystery of why some get sick and others don't means the issue is far from simple. The blonde man explains the grave political stakes. The mysterious illness is confined to the exile district, and if news gets out, it could spark intense discrimination, leading to civil unrest and a potential invasion by the Mira Empire. He reveals they have already taken drastic measures, burning a village for disinfection, which shocks the captain. Count Shin appeals to the captain's sense of duty, reminding him that their greatest responsibility is to protect the nation's borders and maintain safety, which is why the situation must be handled with absolute discretion. The captain internally connects the dots, realizing that summoning renowned physicians would have invited unnecessary suspicion. He resentfully concludes that Sitoen's presence was simply a convenient and discreet solution for them. Cutting through the tense atmosphere, Sitoen calmly takes control of the meeting. She asks for the exact symptoms of the illness and suggests they all sit down first to discuss the matter properly. Once they are seated, the blonde man describes the horrifying progression of the disease. It begins with diarrhea, which worsens into stomach pain and fatigue, followed by the patient's skin turning blue-black before they ultimately die. He adds that the afflicted had apparently purchased dried fish from a traveling merchant. Count Shin asks if it is merely food poisoning, but the blonde man points out inconsistencies. Some households were entirely wiped out while others were not, and not everyone who ate the fish and had diarrhea developed the fatal symptoms. Sitoan seizes on a detail, asking if most of the patients are men, a point the blonde man confirms. Sitoan continues her analysis, explaining that dried sea fish is a staple food in the Mira Empire, often eaten by exiles. The blonde man adds that since many exiles are single men, they continue eating their homeland's food, with a grain called karis being even more common than bread for them. The captain questions the name karis. The blonde man explains that with just salt and karis, a grain cooked with water, the exiles can survive. He notes that it is a source of pride in their homeland. Having established a potential link, Sitoan turns to the others to ask their thoughts. Count Shin formally asks Sitoan if they could borrow her wisdom, just as she helped with his anemia. Before she can answer, the captain interjects, asking if she isn't scared and reminding her that she can refuse, as the disease is infectious and causes its victim's skin to turn blue-black before they die. He then clarifies his true concern, admitting he is scared of losing her and does not want to put her in any danger. Sitoan looks at him with a gentle but firm expression, stating her conviction that if her knowledge can help someone, she has a duty to offer it. Moved by her resolve, the captain clenches his fist, realizing he cannot dissuade her. He turns to Count Shin and the others, declaring that all he can do now is protect her. Inside one of the village houses, Sitoan begins her investigation by questioning a seated woman, asking if her husband had also consumed the dried fish. The woman, introduced as Natalie, tearfully confirms this. She explains that she married her refugee husband last year and has been visiting daily to care for him since he fell ill and was quarantined. Sitoan inquires about his current condition, asking if his stomach still hurts and if he can eat. Natalie explains that her husband can only drink a pork and onion soup she prepares for him, a recipe from her mother. She admits she doesn't know how to make the karis porridge that the local villagers typically use for stomach ailments. Understanding the situation, Sitoan decides she must meet the husband directly. The captain, concerned for her safety, questions if this is truly all right. Sitoan turns to her companions, her tone serious. She explains that infectious diseases spread through mucous membranes and issues firm instructions. They are not to touch anything, rub their eyes, or remove their scarves, even if they feel short of breath. Having concluded that the illness might not be infectious, Sitoan enters the patient's room, announcing her arrival to someone named Rigo. Inside, Rigo sits up in bed, looking gaunt but alert. Rigo is surprised by the visitors. His wife, Natalie, explains that Lord Vandal and Lord Mata brought Sitoan, a person skilled in medicine. Filled with renewed hope, Natalie tells her husband he might be saved. Sitoan, introducing herself, moves to the bedside to begin her examination by taking his pulse. Sitoan immediately diagnoses tachycardia from his rapid pulse and asks to see his legs. She lifts the blanket to reveal swollen, discolored feet, which the onlookers note appear painful. Natalie confirms that Rigo often wakes at night from severe leg cramps. Sitoan suggests that lying down with his ankles elevated might reduce the swelling, but Rigo explains that his breathing becomes difficult in that position. He finds it easier to remain upright. Internally, Sitoan identifies this classic symptom as orthopnea, a realization that puzzles her companions. Mentally, Sitoan connects all the symptoms she has observed: cyanosis, swelling, orthopnea, an elevated pulse, and the previously reported diarrhea and stomach pain. A theory begins to form in her mind. She turns to Natalie and asks a pointed question, if they have any karis. Natalie confirms they do and promptly leaves to fetch some. Sitoan then asks Rigo if he has been eating karis consistently. He affirms this, explaining that after his exile, it was often all he could afford, especially before he married Natalie. As he speaks, a dawning realization seems to strike him, and he looks down at his collar with a troubled expression. The gravity of his condition settles upon Rigo, who looks at the assembled nobles and asks with quiet dread if he is going to die. Lord Vandal, Lord Mata, and Sitoan watch him, their expressions serious. Overwhelmed by despair, Rigo breaks down. He clutches his face, weeping at the thought of leaving Natalie behind and crying out that he doesn't want to die. Lord Vandal steps forward and kneels to meet Rigo's gaze. He tells him firmly that he cannot die, acknowledging that he has a good wife worth living for. To explain his conviction, Vandal reveals his own vulnerability, stating he feels the same way. He imagines that if he were to die unexpectedly, Sitoan would feel a sense of relief for her husband's death, but would also be depressed, blaming herself. And as a spirit, he would be powerless to comfort her. Grasping Rigo's hand with resolve, Vandal declares that in such a situation, one must live on, even if only out of spite. Looking directly at the stunned patient, Vandal gives him a clear command: don't think about dying, think only about living. Rigo is visibly moved by the captain's powerful words. Overcome with emotion, Rigo begins to cry. Lord Vandal attempts to comfort him, telling him to stop crying as his wife will be back soon. However, Lord Mata sharply intervenes, reminding Vandal that he was instructed not to touch the patient. Just then, Sitoan arrives, causing Vandal to worry that he will be scolded. He quickly justifies his actions by pointing out that she had also touched the patient to take his pulse. At the same time, a woman Vandal recognizes as Lim, Rigo's wife, enters the room carrying a bowl. Sitoan's attention is immediately drawn to the bowl Lim is holding. She examines its contents, confirming her suspicion as she identifies the food as white rice. Both Vandal and Mata look on, confused by her focus. With newfound certainty, Sitoan announces her diagnosis: the disease is beriberi, caused by a vitamin B1 deficiency. She explains that it leads to general fatigue, loss of appetite, leg swelling, and sensory paralysis, and can worsen to cause heart failure and brain disorders. Vandal and Mata are perplexed by the unfamiliar term vitamin. Mata asks what language it is from. Sitoan explains that their staple food, karis, is hulled and polished rice, a process that removes the important nutrients contained in the bran. Vandal correctly infers that this means the food is nutritionally unbalanced, even if eaten in large quantities. Sitoan elaborates that the constant consumption of karis, combined with dried fish that upset his stomach, led to a chronic vitamin B1 deficiency. This resulted in cardiac beriberi, the cause of the widespread deaths. She then reveals that Rigo survived because he was able to consume vitamin B1 by drinking the soup his wife made, which Lim confirms contains pork and onion. Sitoan continues her explanation, clarifying that the pork in the soup is rich in vitamin B1, and that the onions and garlic Lim used increased its absorption. She directly credits the wife's soup with keeping her husband alive. Overcome with emotion, Lim asks tearfully if her husband will truly get better. Sitoan offers a reassuring smile and promises they will work together. The wife then embraces her recovering husband, filled with relief. Later, Lord Vandal confirms with Sitoan that the illness is not contagious. Satisfied, he bows deeply, expressing his gratitude on behalf of the people. Sitoan humbly replies that she only did what she could. Vandal insists she did much more, stating his respect for her willingness to believe his words and follow him despite the potential danger. He then addresses her formally, beginning to call her Prince, which causes Rigo and Lim to react in shock, exclaiming, "Prince!" The prince elaborates on his admiration, explaining that her act of holding a patient's hand to offer encouragement, despite the unknown symptoms, is a kindness not many could perform. He acknowledges it was reckless, and Sitoan looks down, dejectedly apologizing. He clarifies that he truly admires her kindness and tolerance, admitting that while he can heal diseases, he cannot heal human nature. As the moment hangs between them, Lord Mata interjects, telling the prince to save the intimate talk for later and that it's time to leave. Now fully recovered, Rigo stands with his wife Lim to offer his profound gratitude to the group, acknowledging that he owes his life to their intervention. As they prepare to leave, Rigo lightheartedly tells the prince to drop the formality, prompting a warm response from the royal who suggests they both make sure to cherish their wives. With the patients in the village on the mend, the party begins their journey back. Later, the prince insists on offering a gift to express his thanks, refusing to be dissuaded. Sitoan's husband attempts to politely decline, explaining their need to return to the capital quickly and making a peculiar request for no whales. Sitoan, however, shyly interrupts to mention a shop she is curious about. Delighted by her request, the prince enthusiastically declares they must visit it at once, catching her husband by surprise. They are led to an elegant shop filled with fine jewelry and ornate porcelain. Upon entering, the group is greeted by a maid. Inside the glassware shop, Sitowen's husband recognizes a familiar design. Lord Vandal confirms his suspicion, stating he included similar glassware in their engagement gift and teasingly asks if he even checked the contents. A brief flashback shows Sitowen and a maid admiring the beautiful glass tableware that was, indeed, among the congratulatory gifts sent by Lord Vandal. Sitowen clarifies her reason for the visit. She explains that the Queen and Crown Princess have been very kind to her, and she wants to give them something in return. Her husband realizes the gift is not for herself. Insisting it's to show his thanks, Lord Vandal declares he will cover the cost. He leans in close to Sitowen's husband, who is visibly flustered by the proximity and protests that the prince is already doing too much by handling their security. After Sitowen makes her selection, her husband tries to step forward to pay, but she gently stops him. With a warm smile, she points out that if he pays, it wouldn't truly be her gift. Seeing the impasse, Lord Mata steps in, placing a hand on the husband's shoulder. He addresses Sitowen directly, suggesting that if she wants to let the prince buy something, she should have him purchase jewelry for her instead, a proposal that shocks both her and her husband. Lord Vandal vehemently insists on being allowed to give Sitowen a gift. Seeing this, Lord Mata internally congratulates himself on a successful intervention, while Sitowen's husband looks on in confusion. The maid encourages Sitowen to indulge the prince's whim. Having acquiesced, Sitowen begins shopping with Lord Vandal, creating the appearance of an intimate outing for the two of them. Sitowen reflects that seeing him so happy is pleasant and finds the shared shopping experience refreshing. She gets his attention, addressing him as Prince Saryu, and points out a pair of earrings that come in different colors. Holding up two options, one yellow and one blue, she directly asks Prince Saryu which one he thinks is better. The unexpected and personal question catches him completely off guard, and he reacts with a shocked "Huh?" Saryu stares in disbelief, internally panicking as he processes that she is genuinely asking for his opinion on such a personal item and wonders what he should do. His mind races with the fact that he has never chosen earrings for a woman before. After a moment of intense deliberation, he suggests that while yellow is lovely, blue would suit her very well. 10 minutes later, he is still visibly stressed from the ordeal, much to the amusement of Lord Mata and the maid. 15 minutes later, Prince Saryu is still paralyzed by indecision, much to the exasperation of Sitowen's husband. The shopkeeper, noticing his struggle, gently asks what the issue is. Saryu, lost in thought, passionately argues with himself while picturing Sitowen. He reasons that yellow earrings would perfectly complement her current outfit, but then immediately counters his own point, recalling that Sitowen often wears blue and that the tableware they selected earlier was also bluish. Sitowen's husband observes aloud that Saryu pays an incredible amount of attention to her. Saryu continues to weigh his options, considering that blue might be better for the upcoming summer season. Another 15 minutes pass as he stares intently at the blue earring, his mental image of Sitowen waiting for his choice. Finally, after a full half-hour of deliberation, Saryu slams his hand down and declares with absolute certainty that blue is the best choice. His decision brings visible relief to the onlookers. Having made his choice, Saryu calls for someone named Raoul to handle the payment. A calm, uniformed man appears and states a simple truth: in cases like this, one should just buy both. The prince is left utterly stunned by the straightforward solution he never considered. As Raoul proceeds with the purchase, Saryu confronts him, indignant that he was allowed to struggle for so long without this simple advice. He accuses Raoul of mocking him. Nearby, Lord Mata remarks to Sitowen's husband that Raoul is correct, finding the prince's intense focus on mere earrings amusing. Prince Saryu is struck by a sudden, frustrating realization: he could have simply used his wealth and princely privilege to buy both pairs of earrings. As he berates himself for being an idiot, he imagines Sitowen gently telling him that just the blue earrings are fine. In his mind, Sitowen explains that her happiness comes from the fact that he chose something specifically for her, not from wanting multiple gifts. The imagined sentimentality of her words leaves Saryu blushing and speechless. Flustered by his own daydream, Saryu stammers. Lord Mata, observing him, remarks on what a selfless lady Sitowen must be, placing a hand on Saryu's shoulder. The prince violently shoves him away, telling him not to touch him so creepily. With their shopping concluded, the group departs from Count Shin's territory. While on the road to the capital, Suryu notices a maid looking out from the carriage with a panicked expression. Sensing something is wrong, his face hardens with concern. And he quickly opens the carriage door to find Sitoun slumped over, looking pale and unwell. "Miss Sitoun," he exclaims in alarm. Prince Suryu bursts into the carriage's main cabin, alarmed to find Sitoun looking pale and unwell. He shouts her name in concern and urgently asks her maid if there is anywhere nearby they can stop to rest. Just moments before, Suryu had noticed her poor condition, asking if she was drunk. Realizing the situation was more serious, he had already ordered his subordinate, Raoul, to find a nearby inn immediately. The maid explains to the confused prince that the young lady's monthly thing is particularly heavy, and the constant shaking of the carriage is making her condition worse. And upon finally understanding the euphemism, Suryu becomes completely flustered. He stammers an apology for his rudeness and ignorance, unsure how to proceed. Sitoun, swaying from the effort, tries to reassure him. She states that she has medicine she always takes for this and will be fine if she can just sleep for a while, but Suryu's expression remains one of intense worry. Overwhelmed with panic, Prince Suryu frantically orders his men to find a place for Sitoun to rest, specifying it must be somewhere that doesn't shake. He desperately calls out for his subordinate, Raoul. Raoul reports back to the prince that the nearest inn has poor security and the next lodging is a great distance away. Elsewhere, one of the soldiers quietly explains to his comrades that Lady Sitoun's condition is a monthly thing. The soldiers immediately understand and express sympathy. Suryu, still flustered, overhears another soldier remarking that his own wife is usually incapacitated for 3 days during her cycle, making travel impossible. This comment seems to solidify the gravity of the situation for the prince. Having made a decision, Prince Suryu issues a firm command: "Tonight, we'll set up camp here." He orders the highway closed off. His men, who were just panicking alongside him, instantly become efficient soldiers, preparing to make camp. Sometime later, Sitoun awakens in a comfortable bed, finding Prince Suryu watching over her. Confused, she asks where they are. He informs her they are inside a tent, but she admits she has no memory of how she got there. Sitoun's maid bursts in, shocked at the idea of camping outdoors, but is stunned into silence by the lavishly furnished interior of the tent. Seeing his opportunity, Suryu holds up the medicine bottle and asks the maid what it is. She explains that it is mostly a sleeping drug. Prince Suryu asks Sitoun's maid if there is a cure for her pain, but the maid emphatically denies it. Inside the tent, Suryu recalls seeing Sitoun's former maid, Eaton, rubbing her lower back to ease her discomfort. He asks Sitoun if she is still hurting, and she confirms that she is. Deciding to help, Suryu moves to Sitoun's bedside and places a hand on her lower back to massage it, but she immediately corrects his placement. With uncharacteristic bluntness, she instructs him to press hard on her sacrum, a directness that Suryu notes is rare for her. Unsure of the exact location, Suryu asks for clarification. Still groggy from the medicine, Sitoun directs him to go lower. He finds her informal speech refreshing but correctly attributes it to the drug's lingering effects as she continues to guide his hand further down, telling him to press harder. Suryu is mortified to realize her directions have led his hand directly onto her buttock. He squeezes as instructed, and Sitoun lets out a soft cry of relief, causing him to twitch in shock and embarrassment. Startled by the intimate nature of the situation, Suryu quickly raises his hands in surrender. However, Sitoun turns to face him, her eyes now clear and lucid, and softly pleads, "Don't stop. Please." Her request leaves him utterly stunned and flustered. Internally, Suryu panics, feeling that her words carry a deeper meaning. Despite his turmoil, he resumes the massage, desperately reassuring himself that he has zero ulterior motives as Sitoun sighs in relief. While Sitoun expresses her relief and asks him to press harder, Prince Suryu internally struggles to maintain his composure through the intensely awkward situation. After some time, he notices she has grown quiet and asks if she is sleepy. Sitoun confirms she is before drifting off, and Suryu gently pulls the blanket over her. As he watches her, Suryu is taken aback when Sitoun begins muttering in her sleep, speaking in a language he has never heard before. His confusion turns to shock as tears well up in her eyes and she clearly speaks a name from her past life, Atsuhito. Still dreaming, Sitoen continues to murmur the name as she reaches out and gently takes Suryu's hand. Holding her hand, Suryu has a somber realization. He now clearly understands that Sitoen didn't fall for him, Vandal, but for the soul of Atsuhito that resides within him.